Just in case you're wondering, this event is going to be recorded so that we can refer to it later on, or we can share it with other people. We'll be sharing it in the group. So I'm going to go live in the next few seconds, and then our guests will be able to join in, and I guess other co-authors will also join. All right, you are welcome everyone to this SheLeads Roundtable Talks. We are glad to see each and every one of you. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Catherine, for keeping time. This is a conversation about leadership and leadership development. Now, our main guests today are the co-authors of the SheLeads Volume 2 book, and this is just a collection of leadership lessons, leadership tips, insights of women leaders. Now, these ladies are powerful women from different walks of life, but what brings them together, what the common factor between all of them is the fact that they are leaders, and not just leaders but influential leaders, women who have made a mark in our society. So I welcome each and every one of you. Zippy, you just raise a hand. There's an emoji for lifting up the hand, and then I'll add you onto the speakers. Thank you so much for keeping time. Yes, if you will just lift your hand. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for keeping time. I'm trying to add you in. Okay. There you go. And then this other person. Okay. Zippy, can you hear me? Can anyone hear me? I hope I'm not speaking to myself.
Yes, Joan, we can hear you. We can hear you.
All right. I just want to make sure that Zippy is hearing us. Okay. We'll fix that technical issue shortly. Judy, thank you so much for keeping time. We are hoping that about 50 people will be joining us tonight. This is the SheLeads Roundtable Talks. Yes, thank you, Kausa, for joining in. Okay. I'm trying to help Zippy come onto the speaker's podium. All right, so here is the program for the evening. We are going to have the opening remarks, which will officially open up the meeting, and then we will have a brief about what the SheLeads project is about by Mr. Doso Radido. And then after that, we will invite the speakers to speak to us, and we will start from this arrangement. Katherine Silva will, Sharon will go first, and then we will have Katherine, and then whoever will come in next to speak in that order. And then afterwards, Zippy will give us the keynote speech. And then we will give a chance to our audience to ask questions. We will give a chance to other co-authors to comment. anyone who is available, and then we will close the meeting hopefully by 7, latest 7, we should be done. Right. I just want to hear from Zippy. Zippy, can you hear us? Okay, I don't know what's happening, but let us open with an opening prayer and then we'll kick off this conversation. So if we will close our eyes and bow our heads. Father in heaven, we thank you so much for this event. We thank you that nevertheless you have been with us, you've made it happen. We pray that it's a success, and we pray that whatever we discuss tonight shall be fruitful. Thank you for the speakers and everyone in the audience. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So just a brief, this is the SheLeads Roundtable Talks, and it is a networking event. We want to connect, we want to talk about leadership, we want people in our networks to get to have a conversation on leadership and leadership development, according to what we have written in our books that we are sharing and giving to the rest of the world. So this is recorded, and whatever we are sharing tonight, someone else will benefit even if they do not tune in tonight. I welcome you all, and I will request each and every one of us to introduce ourselves when we are going to speak. So let me open the podium to Mr. Doso Radido to give us a brief about what this SheLeads project is, how it started, and what is the aim. Yes, Mr. Doso.
Very much, Joan, for encouraging us in the conversation today. God is a very close friend. I am the Strategic Operations Director at our Foundation. And I'm so glad that we get this opportunity to meet and to discuss this. We're going to talk about the project, what the project is all about, what we are going to achieve, how we are going to achieve it, and then I will allow the discussion to continue. On the next project, SheLeads project is a project that concerns the issue of leadership, particularly women's involvement in leadership and in the contribution of women in leadership. The spirit behind this is the whole idea of tapping into the resource of women by maximizing their involvement in the different aspects and spheres of life that are responsible for our growth and development. The background of this is coming from the fact that a lot of this resource has not been utilized, has not been used, especially those of you who come from the third world nations, the African countries. You understand that a lot of social structures are centered around the leadership of the men, and that has been the case for a while now. But that has been going on. We have had a huge resource of women existing in our midst, and not being tapped into, not being utilized, not being supported, not being molded or nurtured in a way that can contribute to what I call strategic values that can power our growth and development. And therefore, for many years now, there has been a lot of agitation to awaken the conscience of the people, to come up with strategies and ways and methods of not just making use of this resource, but realizing the importance of tapping into it and strategically using it to power our growth and development. And therefore, this project government avails us platform that gives us multiple opportunities to do that. One of the things that we're trying to do with the project is to be able to address the measure that has been referred to as the gender parity measure or gender representation measure. So these are the measures that they use to help us to understand how well we are doing in terms of women involvement and the utilization of that resource. And as I think there are specific numbers and statistics that have been arrived at based on studies and researches that have been done to demonstrate how we are doing. So within the African continent, we only have a couple of countries that have been able to surpass the 60% mark in terms of women involvement and representation. We have about, I think maybe 10 or less than 10. Most of the countries are below 60% and are not very, very well. We understand where that is coming from based on the background that we have. In the corporate world, we use representation as a measure. Within the Kenyan space, the best I have seen representation is about 38 to 40%. That means for every 100 people in top leadership, about 38% of them, are women. So that's what we are enjoying. Some other countries have surpassed that; they are either at 60% or they are about, which is very, very good. So our hope is that through this platform, we can be able to at least influence those numbers to move in the positive direction. Number two, we are also hoping that there's going to be a lot more inclusion. They call it gender inclusivity. A lot more inclusion. Women not just in positions and roles, but also in decision making and in contributing value and determining the direction that we are taking as a community. And this we hope to do by shining a spotlight on those women that are doing exceptionally well or are contributing exceptional value in our space. Because one of the things that really determines how people rise into positions of leadership is what we call visibility. It's a question that has been asked a lot of times when we talk about appointments of people into positions, especially women. The question goes, and where are the women? So a lot of that question can be answered by shining a spotlight on women that are doing exceptionally well in our midst, women that have capability and women that are contributing value, so that it is not difficult to see them, because sometimes the lenses we wear, cultural lenses, all the biases that sometimes affect how you're perceiving things or viewing things, would actually cause us not to see people with capability or women with potential and capability, or even those that are doing exceptional well in our midst. So the purpose of this project is to shine a spotlight on them. How we shine a spotlight on them is by using their stories and the lessons they're learning and listening to their recommendations and insights and ideas based on their leadership experience, so that it is possible to hear them, it is possible to see them, and it's also possible to consider their thoughts and their lessons, their insights, and their recommendations in formulating the strategies we're coming up with, the policy, and even determining the way we practice either leadership or we experience life. And as we do that, we are also using the platform to put a spotlight on the work that they are doing. Because for the work that they are doing, we're able to see the contribution and the value that they are bringing. Studies have been done to the point that institutions or in organizations where inclusivity is encouraged and women involvement is encouraged, those institutions are doing much better compared to institutions or organizations that are not embracing that. And I think this is true even in other spheres of life. For example, if you come down to the family unit, if you go down to families where women are empowered and are allowed to be part of the whole family experience in terms of determining how things, decisions are made and how things are done, those families, those children are doing much better. And those communities are actually doing much better compared to communities that are suppressing the voices of the other. So the project gives us a platform with multiple opportunities to be able to encourage or enhance this whole conversation about women and also create visibility and amplify the voices of women in a way that we can be able to boost their involvement, in a way that we can be able to increase their representation, and in a way that we can be able to tap into their resources. Our economists have estimated that if we are able to tap into the resources of the women that are found in our community, it is possible for us to inject between 20 to 30 billion pesos in the GDP of Kenya, for example. And I think the same has been told about many other countries, especially other nations in the sub-Saharan Africa. So that this is not just a group of people that we've been ignoring, but it's a huge resource, and it's a huge potential for economic growth or economic improvement. And I always say, whereas other nations are using technological advancement to boost their competitiveness on the global front, others are using military power. It is possible that us, we tap into this resource and use it as a way of boosting our competitiveness on the global front, because we are yet to really tap into this resource the way it's supposed to be tapped. So one of the things that comes out of this project is a body of literature that has stories of women, insights, lessons, and recommendations. We are hoping that by the time the project is done, we'll have reached about 10,000 women leaders within Kenya and the larger Africa, which we think is quite a lot to be done, and we are moving in that direction step by step. We are also hoping that by the time the project is done, we'll have initiated conversations like this, both in the mainstream media and alternative media together with other spaces like the boardroom and lecture halls and places of work on the front line. We want to make sure that the conscience of the people is awakened, and that our philosophies and perspectives about women and their involvement is also shifted in the right direction, so that we begin to see this as a resource, to tap into it and collaborate with it to be able to power our growth and our development, so that these conversations are part of the outcome of this project. Part of these conversations are going to be virtual like we're doing today. Others will be physical meetings, workshops, conferences, etc. And of course, others will be roundtable conversations. There's a virtual physical, and as I said earlier, bit of it will also be happening in the media to be able to help us pass this message as far as can possibly be done. We're also hoping that by the time the project is done, we have been able to raise what we are calling models of excellence or role models that upcoming leaders can actually look up to and learn from us. It's very important for us to do, especially in this part of the world, because a lot of the literature that has been used to influence our philosophies, our thinking, and our practice is material that has been written from other parts of the world. And not that there is nothing wrong looking at what other nations or other parts of the world are doing. We feel like there is something we keep missing that arises from the context within which we live, because I believe that leadership is contextual. It responds to the realities, the local realities, and therefore there is need for us to take the signals on the ground and use them to influence the kind of interventions that we're coming up with. So that even as we benchmark with other nations or other jurisdictions, it's important for us to pay attention to what's going on within our local jurisdiction. And that's why there is need for us to begin to look around to see who are those people who are doing it well, who are those people that can be models of exceptional achievement, models of excellence that we can learn from, and how can we replicate that in different spaces, in different people, in different spheres, so that we can be able to evolve that and multiply the impact of that across different spaces as a way of compounding the leadership impact of that or the effect of that across organizations, across the communities, and even across individuals within our space. So as we talk to women, we know that there is also the involvement of the male champions of the project, so that this is not just about women themselves. We're also interested in hearing the voices of the male champions, people who support this, people who have seen this, so that they can help us position this conversation correctly and get it to a place where people get to realize that it is advantageous for us to open up the space and to embrace each other and to allow for everything to happen and even embrace the kind of impact that brings. As we speak today, we have launched 2 volumes of the body of literature that we are talking about here. The first volume is 17 people in it. The second volume, which we launched just recently, is another story of women leaders in it. We are hoping that in the next couple of months, we should be able to have also another cohort, another volume with stories, insights, and lessons from the as we go. So in a nutshell, that is what SheLeads looks like. And as I finish, I must thank all the women that have been bold and courageous enough to allow us to see things through their experiences, because unless they share their experiences and tell us how it feels to be women and to be leadership and the challenges they're facing and the opportunities, the kind of support they are getting and the frustrations they feel should be cleared out of the way, then we may not be able to know exactly what's going on. And this is very important because previously a lot of what has been fashioned or curated for women did not consult with them. It is just a bunch of people who are not really conversant with the actuality or the reality of being a woman, just coming up with things they thought women needed. And there are certain things we got right and there are certain things we missed completely. Therefore, we decided that we need to get their perspectives and their experiences so that we are properly informed based on their experiences and the insights and the lessons that they have learned along the way. This way, we are sure that we are listening to the voice of the ground, we are listening to the women themselves, and we are properly guided, even in coming up with the interventions that we are coming up with. At the end of the day, we want to see if through this project we can influence policy that affects the leadership terrain. We also hope that we are able to affect how leadership practice is being done. And lastly, we are also hoping that we should be able to influence how leadership is being molded, because leadership, a lot of it comes from either coaching, training, or mentorship, and that is guided by certain principles. So that from this project, we can take necessary lessons that can help us influence that. Then we know we are going to be getting it right. And lastly, speaking to the women themselves, especially those who are coming up, helping to influence their mindset and their skill set, so that we have the right people going into leadership and doing right. Then we know we are going to be moving in the right direction. So that's all I'll say for now. My name is Joan Nakitende, the Strategy and Operations Director at Roundtable Publishers. Thank you so very much. Take the meeting back to Joan.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dosoradido. That was an insightful brief of what the SheLeads project is. I, for one, have realized that this project is to shine a light on the work of women leaders and amplify their voices so that they're able to impact upcoming women leaders. Thank you so much. That was very, it brought more light to why we are here, and we are grateful for that. Thank you everyone for joining in. This is the SheLeads Roundtable Talks. It is a networking event, meaning that we are not going to be speaking alone, but you're also going to be, as part of the listeners, you're going to be able to speak, you're going to be able to give your comments, your views, and maybe ask a question. But for now, we are going to start with the speakers, our guest speakers. Now, these are successful women leaders who have come together and put together all their insights, not all of them, but their main insights in their journey to leadership. They've put it together in a book, which we call the SheLeads project. They have overcome significant barriers to advancement, including discriminatory policies and practices, lack of access to education, cultural biases, and so many other challenges. And they have made it to the top. Most of these ladies, actually all of these ladies are C-suite women, meaning they have broken the glass ceiling and they are going to share with us how they made it and which tips that we can go away with and implement them, not only as women but also men, which tips we can go away with and implement in our leadership journeys. Thank you very much for joining in. You can still continue inviting a friend or a loved one. There's a button that says invite. You click that and then send a message to anyone you would like to join. For now, we are going to go ahead and start the speeches from our guest speakers, and I'm going to start with Katherine Silva because Sharon, who was supposed to start, is having a little bit of a technical challenge. So we are going to start with you, Katherine, and when you're going to speak, please introduce yourself to us. Now, Katherine Silva is the founder of the Core Support Africa Foundation. She is also the founder of Core. I hope I'm pronouncing that well. If I was speaking an African language, it would be Core, but I'll pronounce it as Core. Let me say Core African Magazine. So that's Core Support Africa Foundation and Core African Magazine. She works in the corporate field as a professional banker, a business consultant, a trainer, and an author. Katherine is a charity ambassador. She founded the Joy Drops, which is a donation drive that includes mentorship towards survivors of GBV, mental health, menstrual drives, and mentorship workshops. She is Mrs. Virtual Africa Classic 2021. She was awarded a finalist for the children's category for the CLC Kenya and so many other awards. She was appointed as a volunteer ambassador for the Girl Child Network. I'm telling you, this lady has so many awards. If I start to mention them all, we shall enter into tomorrow. But all I know is that she has been a finalist with a global She Inspires organization. She's an agent for change. She is a founder of Great Things. And right now, Katherine, as you're going to tell us about what it means to be a founder or an entrepreneur, a leader who is a founder, an entrepreneur, please introduce yourself and then go right ahead.
Thank you, Joanne. Good evening, everyone. I wouldn't know what else to introduce myself because Joanne has practically read my CV. That's on a light note. But however, what we have left out in my introduction, apart from being a founder, I'm a mother, a wife, a daughter, and an ordinary woman like all of us that are right here. So it is a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much. Speaking towards being featured, I would like to say that I'm very grateful that Zion Publishers picked me to be part of the SheLeads Volume 2 as a founder. I would always take part in any project that is to do with women empowerment and real impact. And for sure, I've seen real impact come from the whole book launch, from what the authors have written, and it's just been a pleasure to interact with the different women who are doing so many different things within Africa and globally. So basically, on writing and on my topics, it's the self lessons you can learn as a leader. For me, this article was a part of my life that goes back to my mother. As you get older, you appreciate and understand the different figures in your life. And these self-factors I wrote about, what I believe are the factors that really speak towards us as leaders. And when I say leaders, I don't mean just different statuses. I'm talking about a leader in each of our individual lives. We are all leaders of our life. We are leaders in every different status. The self-factors is more of a journey of how, as an author, I chose to come out with my children's book that I had drafted a very long time ago, and was not totally comfortable with putting what I had written out there in the public. We all know that we second guess ourselves, we're never sure, we feel we need to be an expert in a certain area to venture in. However, the main things, I drafted this book 10 years ago, and my mom reminded me about it. This is a book that came out during the lockdown, and it is a project I did during that time. And the reminder and encouragement from my mom, that gentle nudge, gave me the journey on self-belief as an author. And that's why I speak about the self factors as a founder, as a leader, or just as a woman in your life. Having self-awareness, having self-belief. Because, well, without our self-belief, even if we are self-aware and then we want to develop and have self-development, nothing will happen if we don't have self-belief. So what I've written about is mainly on that, and on how I came to realize certain things that I had been complimented over the years. For example, oh, you're so organized, oh, you're so punctual. You take for granted, but you don't realize. I watched someone do this, and for me, it was watching my mom being prepared, being early, praying for God. And that is actually what I have written about. And on a light note, touched it on my childhood, so that anyone who reads the book, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really have to be something that is extremely intellectual, but a story that teaches you to look at yourself, encourage yourself, improve yourself, and follow your dreams. A big part of what I wrote in regards to when you're younger, you just start a project. It's about a treehouse that I started with, and you just put two pieces of wood together and decide, wow, I've done something, and this is a treehouse, whatever it looks like to you. But as we get older and we criticize ourselves and there's the norms of society, we don't believe in anything we do until maybe it's perfect or at the right time. And yet as children, we just start imagining and innovating and doing, just by doing. And I think that is a big part for us as women in leadership especially. There are certain levels we feel we have to have certain perfection to be able to be successful, or what defines us as success. And yes, I hope it encourages you for those who have not read it. And I thank also the listeners for tuning in. And that's my part. Thank you. Over to you, Joanne.
Thank you so much, Catherine. That was very insightful. I don't know if anyone has a question. Please feel free to raise your hand if you have a question for Catherine. I, for one, my takeaway is that we learn by doing. We learn from our mistakes. We learn through our experiences, and that helps us be more aware of who we are and what we are capable of. Thank you so much, Catherine, for that. I'm going to open up the podium for Sharon Cheramboss. Sharon, if you're ready, just give me a thumbs up and then we will see what to do. But for now, I would like to thank you so much, each and everyone who has joined in. Patricia, Trufena, Evelyn, Esdora, Beatrice, Gregor, Judy, Kausa, everyone else. Thank you, Christian, for joining in. I'm waiting for Sharon. Sharon, if you can hear me, you can raise your hand. All right. This is the SheLeads Roundtable, and we are just having discussions, conversation on leadership and leadership development, focusing on the SheLeads book, volume 2. So Sharon, if you're ready, please go ahead and share with us what it means to reshape the leadership narrative. And before you begin, you can please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, John. And just by way of introduction, my name is Sharon Cheramboss. I am the Director of Policy and Partnerships for Bridge Academies in Kenya and Uganda. We do operate low-cost schools across both countries. Just before I go into my section of writing the book and what it means to reshape the leadership narrative, when I got the invitation to be part of this project, I was not only excited because this is a great platform and avenue to add on to the conversation of not just leadership but women in leadership. But for me, I thought that it was going to be a journey where I would pay homage to a very important person, and I'm really excited when I hear the other co-authors, like Katherine, mention their mothers. And when I started embarking on this journey, I asked myself, what does leadership mean to me? And how has my leadership journey been from the very get-go at a very young age to the point where, we're now decision makers and being able to make decisions not just for organizations but society at large. And in that reflection, it took me back to my childhood where I grew up in the house of a teacher and a soldier. And anyone who knows people from those two professions will realize that 3/4 of the time you're probably a student, and then the other time you're a soldier, meaning that you are very much shaped to be disciplined and to be consistent and to be accountable. And I cannot speak my story without mentioning my mother, Maryanne Cheramboss. And when I say this was an homage to her, it was because she left us without sharing her story. And her story is one where she grew up from humble beginnings and became an astute leader in a school, a very respectable school in Kenya. And growing up, I looked at her, and she would come home and she'd remove her hat as a principal and then put on her hat as a mother. And she was able to lead so many people and direct so many people and shape so many lives. And growing up in that household, I used to wonder whether there's only that style of leadership. I went to school, and true to being the child of a teacher, academic excellence was definitely something that was seen as the pinnacle of achievement and part and parcel of, being a leader. And I thought that if you excel at school, that means you're a leader. But in due time, I came to realize that academic excellence is only but one part of the leadership journey. Because to excel, yes, you need discipline, but to be a leader, you need so much more. And in the household growing up, I saw various leadership traits. I saw how my parents were able to be firm. I saw how my mother was able to be very nurturing. I saw how she led with empathy. I saw how she had very resolute principles. And growing up in that household, the school motto was also our home motto, which was honor, courage, and industry. And when I started embarking on my journey, I thought that there was only one way to be a leader, and that was either the soft side, which was more so my mother's, or the very firm side, which was my father's. But then, when I went on to the big bad world, as they call it, you start realizing that you meet biases. You go in and when you're promoted, you start realizing that perhaps your team members are older than you, and how do you garner respect? How do you get someone who is 10 years older than you to respect you as a leader? And it is through this journey and in this chapter that I share what I have learned along the ways, drawing on, all the people who have had a positive impact on my life, drawing on other female leaders, drawing on mentors. And in the process, I remember there was a time when I had just been promoted, and I went back to my mother and I told her that I think it's high time that I changed my look, because when women become leaders, they have to really, really lean into their masculine. And she posed a question to me and she said, would that be you, authentically you, or would you be trying to fit a certain mold? And I went back and I really reflected, because I knew that for you to be able to enter certain rooms, you had to be very masculine leaning. But that question made me reflect and do a lot of introspection. And I opted to just lean into all the things that are authentically me, meaning leaning into femininity, leaning into empathy, leading with an empathetic ear. And in so doing, I think I've been able to circumnavigate some of the challenges that are there. And in my chapter, when I talk about transformative leadership, it really looks at the fusion where you nurture resolute principles and your femininity and all the aspects that make you authentically you, so as to become, a leader that has a great impact. My chapter is a journey through leadership from a very young age to where I have gotten to today. And I think, to echo the words of my co-author, Catherine, you have to continue learning. It's not that you will get to a point where you will cease learning as a leader. This is a journey that I also continue to embrace. I think part of the questions that, Joan, you asked at the beginning are, what are some of the tips that we can share from our leadership journeys? For me, one, of course, the biggest one is to be authentically yourself. But especially in today's age, I will share something that was also shared to me, which is respond, do not react. And this is especially the case when it comes to situations where you find yourself perhaps in a boardroom, in a meeting, where you might disagree with what is being said, or perhaps, as is the case of human nature, having tempers flared, or having, professional disagreements, if I can call it that. Sometimes they do escalate. And I will say, in such situations, teach yourself to respond and not react. By that I mean lead with a neutral response as opposed to an emotional reaction. That way, calmer minds will be able to succeed. And the other bit that I would like to share is separating yourself from your role. Much as our journeys are a marriage of our professional and personal, I would say that there comes a time when it is really important to separate yourself from the role so as to be a greater leader. And what do I mean by that? I mean, say for instance, you find yourself in a position where you need to make a decision and you're unsure. Maybe you don't necessarily fully agree with the decision, or you don't necessarily subscribe to a certain school of thought. And in that situation, the moment you're able to, for a moment, separate yourself from the role that you have and your persona, you can be able to have, I call them moral compass conversations with yourself. You're able to trigger your integrity. You're able to trigger a calmer mind to be able to address the issue at hand. And then finally, maybe something that I think a lot of women leaders go through is the imposter syndrome. Not just men, not just women, but even male leaders. I think in my leadership journey, there were times where you would go into a room and ask yourself, am I really good enough? Or ask yourself, do I really belong? And sometimes no amount of self-talk can get you out of that. But I would encourage leaders, all shapes and sizes, to remember that when we take on these leadership roles, it is by virtue of our skills, by virtue of our qualities, but more so because you have an ability, you have a skill set that wasn't present there. And my tip for whenever a person is going through that is to just remind yourself that every other person in the room is probably having the same conversation, so that you don't feel too bad about worrying that you're an imposter, because we are all imposters, or we are all non-imposters. So allow me to stop there. I'm really excited to have the listeners go through the chapter on reshaping the leadership narrative. It is a lot more than what I have just said. It has been an exciting journey, and just a special thank you to Dosso and the publishers, because this goes a long way in terms of securing legacy, not just for individuals, but for an entire society. And for those of us who have been part and parcel of this project, it goes a long way in making sure that that which was shared with us, that which we have learned, that it doesn't die with us. So thank you so much. Back to you, Joan.
Wow, thank you so much, Sharon, for that. What better way to define authenticity and empathy in leadership than how you've brought it out. I'm grateful for this conversation. Thank you, Sharon, for not being afraid to share your story, especially about the bit where we bring out, where you brought out your mother's leadership style. For me, that is life-changing. Thank you so much for that. And if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand, and when the time comes, we will give you an opportunity to ask. But for now, just a recap. This is the SheLeads Roundtable Talks. We are talking leadership and leadership development, putting the focus on the SheLeads book, which is a combination of leadership lessons from women leaders. And yes, it is brought to you by the SheLeads project, powered by the Zion Pearl Publishers, the publishers of the SheLeads book. Now, without any further ado, I'm going to request Zipporah or Zippy Chege to come to the podium. You just unmute. She is our keynote speaker for tonight, and I will let her introduce herself and then say what she has to say. You're welcome to the podium, Zippy. Okay, Zippy, can you hear me? Okay, just, all right. Please go ahead. Zippy, you'll just unmute your mic, and then we'll be able to hear from you. Now, in case you haven't read the SheLeads book, Volume 2, Zippy writes about balance between family, work, and friends. And she will be speaking to us in a minute. She's having a technical issue at the moment, but I'm going to help her out. In the meantime, I would request anyone who has a question, please raise your hand. Okay, one of our co-authors is Kausa. She also wrote in the SheLeads book. And in case Kausa has something to say, please feel free to raise your hand and we'll give you an opportunity to speak. Okay, let me see what to do. Let me text. All right. Maybe in the meantime, Mr. Dosso, if you have something to comment on the what our speakers have said so far, You will speak, you could make a comment, and then in the meantime, I'll help Zippy to work out the technical issue. Mr. Dosso.
I want to make a comment about what Sharon was talking about. I know she mentioned was one of the biggest differences kind of leadership is to be a mother. And I don't know, a mother knew what was going on, kind of influence that was happening on. And basically, I just want to point out one of the things that I think that sometimes the environment we put ourselves through huge impact on us, all the everything, and of course the way we act or even we become, so that her leadership, whether she was doing leadership for the benefit of the people she was leading, or she was doing leadership to mentor Sharon, I don't know, but you can see that her impact, her influence is already being felt. Now, a lot of people will learn from what she did, and this was really point out the need for us to be able to read leadership model. And it doesn't have to be a complicated thing or a complex thing. Just be an authentic leader, wherever you are. In leadership thing, there are people that are watching, people that are observing you, and people will be directly affected by what you're doing, and others will be indirectly. Sometimes we inspire people without really knowing that we're inspiring people. Sometimes we are watched by people and we don't know that they are watching us. They see how we are dealing with crisis, they see how we are navigating creativity and inclusivity and change and all these things. We keep sending out those signals. So at times as a leader, you may not feel like anything serious is happening. And sometimes you may not feel like what you've said or what you've done is a big thing, but it lands on somebody else's life as a seed. And that seed maybe never becomes a huge tree that you find a shade. So many so that when we talk about being a model of exceptional leadership, we are not necessarily talking about rocket science, but just encouraging those of you who have been graced to be leaders, or those of you who are occupying spaces of leadership of people movement. Just let you know that your impact is happening. It's happening, and sometimes it's obvious and loud, sometimes it's but it keeps going on. People are watching you, people are watching your thinking, people are watching your actions, and people are trying to model after you. One of the most interesting things I have seen about leadership is that people want to emulate that. Sometimes it goes to the extent of even people wanting to dress like their leader, or to speak like their leader, or to do certain things like their leader. When strong leadership is happening, you see emulation happening. People who want to be like leaders, they want to speak like their leaders, they want to champion the causes that their leaders are championing. So that it doesn't have to be a high position for it to be leadership. It doesn't have to be pretense for it to be leadership. Just be what you are. If you are value-led leader, just go by that. There is somebody else who will be inspired by your style of leadership and your approach to leadership. And that's why it's important for us to share the spotlight, to shine a spotlight on these people, because there are certain people that are just waiting for a role model for them to begin to have somebody to be influenced. And so the more we have, the better. And when we begin to shine their light on their stories, we know that now this will go into the hands of so many people that we may not be able to connect. So I really like the model of leadership influence that happened in the case of Sharon, that helped her to become which actually now which is beginning to use that impact in the rest of the world in Africa. So it's like generational passing on of baton. So I think that take allows Zippy to take responsibility and kind of humans of all the experience.
Yes, Zippy, please. Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. So Zippy Chege is my name. I am currently the Chief Finance Officer at ICA Life General. I'm also a non-executive director at Joan Nakitende and Perry PLC Limited. I am a co-author to SheLeads Volume 2, and it's my absolute pleasure to share with you my speech titled The Power of Writing. SheLeads Volume 2 is my first opportunity to write a book, and I must confess that it's the beginning of many other books that I will be writing, with my next one to be launched on my next birthday. Participating in this project together with my lovely co-authors has been one of the most fulfilling projects I have engaged in. In the course of this, I have learned many key lessons, and this is what I will be sharing with us today. 1. The power of telling a story or telling our story. In SheLeads Volume 2, myself and my co-authors have penned down our lifetime experiences. To most of us, as we wrote, these were ordinary stories. Some were happy, while others were painful. But together, these stories have made the people that we are today. Reading through the chapters has made me travel through the lives of 18 amazing women and have had the privilege to learn amazing nuggets of wisdom that will be instrumental to my life moving forward. Maya Angelou said, there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story infant. The second nugget of key lessons that I have learned is that writing is for ordinary people. Before this project, writing seemed to be for other people. People who had made it in life and probably had done great things in their life. And this is not to say that I have not made it in life. They probably had a degree in literacy and schooled in a particular group. And guess what? When you meet Dr. Dosso, the first thing that one notices is that, yes, he's a doctor. So the biggest question for me therefore is this really for me? Participating in this project has made me realize that, yes, writing is for me too. To all my friends and anyone in my circle that I meet, and indeed to my listeners today, please go ahead and pen down your experiences for the current and future generation. And I being said, we write to taste life twice, in the moment and in retrospect. The third key lesson I have learned is that there is companionship in books. We live and read words. It was books that made me feel that perhaps I was not completely alone. They could be honest with me and I with them. Reading your words, what you wrote, how you were lonely sometimes and afraid, but always brave, the way you saw the world, its colors and textures and sounds. I felt the way you thought, hoped, felt and dreamt. I felt I was dreaming and thinking and feeling with you. I dreamed what you dreamed, wanted what you wanted, and then I realized that truly, I just wanted you. That's a quote by Cassandra Blair. The fourth lesson is on writing and vulnerability. Writing involves one giving a portion of ourselves. The most important things are the hardest to say. We need to share our stories, and yes, including those that we are ashamed of. In this way, we share hope to the world. Hope that those reading this book and other books that they are also human with strengths and weaknesses, and confirming that if we pull through, they too can pull through. Stephen King said, "The most important things are the hardest to say. They are the things you get ashamed of because words diminish them. Words shrink things that seem limitless when they were in your head to no more than living size when they are brought up. But it's more than that, isn't it? The most important things lie too close to wherever your sacred heart is buried. Like landmarks to a treasure, your enemies would love to steal away. And you may make revelations that cost you dearly, only to have people look at you in a funny way, not understanding what you said at all, or why you thought it was so important that you almost cried when you were saying it. That's the worst, I think, when the secret stays locked within, not for want of a teller, but for want of an ear of understanding." My fifth lesson is actually a quote by Nancy Kemuma, who is one of the SheLeads Volume 2 co-authors. And she says, "Let's leave shrinking for linen clothing." Yes, you heard that right. Sometimes as women, we have confused not speaking about our achievements to humility. Writing gives us an opportunity to write down about our achievements and to let the world know who we are, what we have struggled or excelled in, and to share how we went about it. The sixth lesson is that there is power in numbers. This project was made possible through collaboration and amazing leadership by Zion Publishers. My amazing co-authors came together and each of them put down a chapter about topics that are very inspiring. Would you like to change your mindset on leadership? Do you sometimes feel like a victim? How about when you feel your strength is failing? Do you commit to the Lord whatever you do? In the course of our lives, various leadership narratives have impacted us. What are our self-factors that influence how we lead or how we lead? Are we self-aware? Do we self-improve ourselves? And what are our self-belief systems that could have held us back? When you find yourself at the edge of destiny, where everything feels so close but so far, where do you turn to? Have you ever wondered about the power within you? Did you need to learn about being a whole woman? Do you sometimes feel overwhelmed and not sure how to balance between family, work, and friends? These and much more are the nuggets that you find in SheLeads Volume 2. Have you gotten a copy of this book? If not, kindly do so and benefit from the amazing nuggets shared by these amazing co-authors. In closing, I would love to encourage all the women on this call today, and indeed even the men. Go out there and do it now. Do it afraid and just start. And guess what? That last phrase that I just spoke about is another chapter in SheLeads Volume 2. I will close by a quote by Michelle Obama. She says, "There's no limit to what we as women can accomplish." And I could also add it and say, there's no limit to what we as men can accomplish. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Zippy. I have no words to add to that because basically you have opened the book and wrapped it up. And it's such an amazing keynote that you've given to us. My number one takeaway is let us leave shrinking to linen clothing. And that's a quote by one of the co-authors, Nancy Kemuma, that Zippy quoted. Thank you so much. And right about now, we are opening up the podium for you to ask questions. Anyone who has questions, comment or an addition, anything you would like to say, an appreciation, just raise your hand and then we will give you an opportunity to speak. But I would like to thank all our co-authors who are in the audience. Thank you for showing up tonight and making this a possibility. Yes, so I'm just waiting for any questions and then we will proceed. Okay, if anyone has a question or something to add, don't be afraid. Okay, my takeaways from Sharon's speech was I just highlighted a few things. She mentioned nurturing, things I'm going to implement in my leadership: nurturing, empathy, discipline, courage, and industry, and most of all, authenticity. And I believe these are the ingredients to transformative leadership. So I'm still waiting for someone to lift their hands and I'll give them an opportunity to speak. I believe Evelyn Kitsao and Kausa could have something to say. Judy, thank you so much for staying here. You were the first to join the conversation. Still here. We're grateful for that. Alright, in case no one has a question, Mr. Doso, do you have a question?
Thank you so very much. I have a question. I just wrote this question today. Last time I had her speak, she talked about what is right as well. I really didn't remember that. I just want to help us understand what leading is. Unapologetic and being a leader. If you have running money in the level of pouring water, yet that comes now being other consequence of the fact that now they're beginning to see the true reality of just living comfort under the skin of a leader. How did you navigate this? How have you been able to keep your balance in there so that you are just a woman as can be a leader?
Thank you, Mr. Doso, for that question. Yes, it's indeed true that right from even our upbringing, in quite a number of our cultures, sometimes the women were just supposed to be seen and not heard. And as ladies, and even the wider society, the way it's cultured, it therefore then translates into the corporate world that we should just be seen and not heard. And you put it right, we are branded various things, pushy, arrogant, proud. Those are some of the brandings that come along with women, especially who express themselves and share their viewpoints openly, with caution as well. Now, how have I navigated this? I think the first thing is to appreciate that as a woman, you have a society that has been cultured in a particular way. And the other thing is to also ensure that whatever it is that we are putting our voice to is something that we are comfortable about. It's something that we have done our homework about it, so that then after we have made the comment, we are not justifying the reason why they actually
sometimes we do not know that we are being controlled by it. Yesterday I was having a conversation with a gentleman at the USIU, and we were actually discussing the whole idea of bringing this SheLeads conversation into the lecture hall of the faculty chairman. So that happens. So three things came up, discussion about the forces that control our lives, and sometimes introduce biases in our thinking and our living, and makes us so helpless and sometimes unfocused. The force of culture, the force of religion, because a bit of how we handle and treat women, a bit of it comes from the religious teachings that we have. Yet, if you look at the way the woman was introduced into creation, and I like going back to that because that's the beginning point of this whole conversation around women. She was introduced as a complementary force. She was coming to be a help. And when she is a help, she is a competent person. She is somebody who brings value to life, and she is supposed to sit around the table. And I like it that you're even talking about that table, because a lot of times women don't see themselves around the table. They don't even see themselves making tables or owning tables. They run away from that, and therefore with that they continue to be victimized, either by people who are intentionally doing that, or by people who take advantage of the fact that now they're playing that position. And of course, the third force is the force of how we are trained. I know training can be a bit, it can come close to culture, but there is something that comes from our training that conditions us to live life in a certain way. So when you talk about the place of culture, we remind about the other teachings that we pertain to ourselves too. And these forces are so powerful that sometimes it doesn't matter how far somebody has gone up the academic ladder. When they are out of school, university, when they come back home, they still continue to see things using cultural lenses or lenses, and sometimes they are training lessons, and that really ends up affecting the way we perceive things and the way things play out in our lives. And if you look at the impact of that on women, because a lot of women know that they are women. I don't know how many men know that they are men, but women are so conscious about the fact that they are a woman. I mean, they have been told this many times, culturally told, religiously told, they're told through other forms of training. I don't know what your thoughts are about
Yes. And I'd probably quote, one of the things that I mentioned in chapter 10 of the book, that we need to kick off myths from our mindset. Because I think there's one thing to be, for people to label you in a particular way, there's another thing for us to also label ourselves in a particular way. And because these things have been said over and over again, getting ourselves out of that way, then it's not quite an easy thing. In fact, quite often you'll find as women, we may justify those things. You just went to a meeting and it was expected that you're the one who was going to collect caps after everybody else. And part of it is just because of our position in society. This is what we do at home. But when it comes to the corporate world, are we carrying those things that we do at home to the workplace? Is it a good thing? Is it not a good thing? And how is it perceived? Are we perceived to be lesser individuals because, we are women? So I'd say it's on us, but also even on the people that we are interacting with, to actually change this narrative. And one of the things that we can change this narrative is by continuously talking about it, writing about it, like has been done in this book. And for us who are in positions of creating policies and governance frameworks, it's an excellent opportunity to ensure that these things that probably we have carried over time are actually under. It may not happen in a day or two, but over time, as we continuously talk and openly discuss it, we hope to see a change. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and I like the way you approach the remark by saying those who are in positions of present authority, they have a responsibility to prepare the terrain, and that terrain has to be repaired, and that's why we are keen on taking insights and lessons from also the work leaders, because now you know where the show is teaching. But we must be able to use these lessons in a strategic way and influence the terrain for each one of those very important things. We must be able to influence the remote control. I know we all have heard of the third gender rule. The third gender rule is an interesting one. And what I like about it is it's an experimental system. It has 7 years to expire. If after 7 years this rule expires and we get an opportunity to again discuss another law or another rule that is in place, we must show up boldly, fiercely, and actually demand that fraction should not be left there, because in my opinion I think we should open that space more. The worst we can do is a 50-50 so that it's balanced across the system, or if possible we just remove the fraction, because that's how people play around that general rule. Men believe that they are supposed to fill 2/3 of that space. Women believe that they are supposed to fill 1/3 of that space. When they created that, I know how it came about. It was organization by those who had to be like a lot of suppression and and therefore what was done, 1/3 of the space was created and allowed to move and a lot of mentality around them, a lot of thinking around them. Actually agrees with what I am saying, that it's overcreated. One of us what are you people trying to achieve? Trying to achieve it by what percentages? They are at least a third of the whole people are here, which is actually very, very sweet. So we have the responsibility to actually develop the terrain. But I think that
Thank you so much, Doso, Mr. Doso, for those insightful questions. The floor is still open in case someone has a comment, a question. You can raise your hand and we will give you an opportunity to speak. Otherwise, I welcome you all. Thank you, Maryanne, for joining, Kausa, Judy, Evelyn, Trufina, and Isidora. It's such a delight to have all of you here. And while we are here, it is the SheLeads Roundtable Talks, and we're here to talk leadership and leadership development, focusing on the SheLeads book, Volume 2, where we have a beautiful combination of leadership lessons from women leaders coming from different walks of life, but what brings them together is the fact that they have made it to the top and they are still going up. So I thank you so much all for joining in tonight, and I would like to close, but before we do that, just one more opportunity to someone to speak. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. Right, Evelyn would like to speak. Yes, Evelyn, just unmute and then go ahead.
Good evening, Joan. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Thank you for this session. I've enjoyed listening to the conversation that's been going on. Dr. Alido, you said something that I keep arguing about with
future challenge of women's leadership is a place where when we have talked about gender role and we have now leveled the ground up, we begin to look at potential leadership. I think, but I know leadership or leadership is important. But when we began to talk about this, movement of women and how they put that gender and many other things have been happening in the position of a woman rep. In our opinion, I don't think we need the position of a woman rep as a humanitarian approach to the fact that we don't have a lot of women in positions of leadership. We just need to level the ground up so that we can have them as governors and all these positions out there. We don't need to create a special thing. The more we keep feeling like we need to create a special position to take care of the inadequacy in terms of numbers, the more action we will stop. So that when we talk about women's involvement, we are not just talking about elevating people to positions. We are talking about building the right mindset, building the right leveling the ground up, having the right policy and framework, so that it is a ground that is leveled up, open for everybody. And that's why I keep talking about it is possible for us to scrap off the fact of let it be that anybody who is capable, is competent, and is willing and is the best among us, let them go. If they are all going to be women, if they are the ones who give us the experience and get among themselves, so that we don't feel like, no, we have to limit ourselves by just we have to limit ourselves by function. We just need to like, but as I said earlier, as soon as somebody has occupied a position of influence, we stop looking at them in terms of gender, we start looking at them in terms of productivity. And I agree with you so much, and also in agreement with what you were saying. We are almost so that when you are the one in that position, you don't start crying and say, you know what, I can't do as much because I'm over. No, we don't want that. We just want leadership to be leadership and to let it happen.
Right, thank you so much, Evelyn, for for bringing that out. Evelyn is actually one of the co-authors of the SheLeads book, Volume 2, and I would like to welcome Maryanne Nyangi to say something to us tonight.
Thank you, Joan. I am a completely different normally, the woman is well qualified and completely capable of playing the role. But for some reason, the project never, what do I want to say? It never comes for her. So that is why there's all this global gathering to the women empowerment. We are never at the same level with the man. If we have a chance to take the man and not the woman, equally qualified. And that's why we say, let's put up the woman up. Let's put the woman up. Yes, the recruiter is not particular, but most chances, in politics, can you imagine going up against a man in politics? It's a rough game. It's a rough game. So that tends for us to put the woman up. Cautiously, and make sure that you have that right. Yeah, that's how I'm going.
Amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, just in case you do not know Maryanne Nyangi is also one of the SheLeads co-authors of Volume 2, and just briefly I would like her to brief us on what she wrote and why she wrote it.
Well, so I got a background for and most of the ones that covered back most of the time. And some of them were ones that I was one of them, and I wanted to watch and I didn't imagine the kind of challenges so my boss said, you know what, talk to her and find out what this man wants from a man. or whatever, so that they can cash trail. So when you're being appraised by the bank, because the bank is very home, it's about records. So just train them to keep records, have like a framework, have your KRA in place, and those kind of things. And the entire thing was about networking. Just advocate it. They get together, just encouraging each other. So making sure that you're associating with the right people so that you can lift. So at some point, the manager was what the phone is going to do. So I decided that just like to take care of the lands that we have naturally, not just access to capital, lack of financial literacy, lack of networking. So I decided just to handle my connection. So that's what's going on. Just get a balance to access capital, to access each other, and of course to get financial literacy, how to keep their books. Because if I go to a bank, they won't let me money because you look for money. I have to keep the books. That's one of the things I love about Ghana. I have to keep the books. They have their life club, they have everything. So I also have to get that education capacity. So that's what's what I'm doing right now. I'm going to college.
Wow, that's amazing. I believe that's the typical definition of what empowerment is. It's financial empowerment, and kudos to you for doing all that and not giving up even when the company was going down. Yes. Thank you very much, everyone. Yes?
Of course, I have the corporate world of that. I'm starting the corporate world, but I am focused on actually to hire. And that's what my earlier comment, I said, the reason that women don't step up is they don't have the confidence, so we have to give that to step up because they're equally qualified or even.
All right. I would like to bring this meeting to a close, but before I do that, I would like each and every one of our speakers to give us a closing remark, to give us a last tip, something that we should go away with before we bring this to an end. And I'm going to start with Sharon. Sharon, if you have one last word for us, please unmute and share that with us.
Thank you so much. I think I've really gotten to enjoy this roundtable talk and also learning from the other co-authors. I think just to piggyback on what Maryanne has said, my part is going to uplift. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, brilliant. My part in short would be to embrace sisterhood, sisterhood in kitchens, sisterhood in the streets, sisterhood everywhere, so as to uplift each other. Because much as we are in this journey together, sometimes we can be our own worst enemies. And I think one of the biggest testaments to such projects are like the Big Sister programs. I think we need to adopt our own sisters outside of our families and uplift them and uplift each other. I think that would be my parting shot. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you so much for that. Let me go straight ahead to Catherine. Your last words for